Good morning. I'm Helen Collis, a senior health reporter at Politico, and I'm pleased to welcome Stefan Oelrich, head of pharmaceuticals division at Bayer, for a quick fireside chat about Europe's pharmaceutical legislation. At the core of the European Commission's pharma package is the ambition to improve availability, access, and affordability to medicines in Europe. Also, the Commission wants to ensure the region remains internationally competitive for the pharmaceutical industry, as we've just heard. It's fair to say that Bayer is a success story for Europe. The company employs over 44,000 people in Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, and almost half of this number are based in Germany across 13 manufacturing and development sites. We know that the pharmaceutical industry does not like some of the Commission's proposals, such as the data exclusivity incentive to quickly launch in all countries and the uncertainty around what defines unmet medical need. Stefan, can you tell us what impact the Commission's proposals would have on Bayer, its R&D pipeline, its staff, and its footprint in Europe?
Thank you, Helen, and thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be on this podium here. And thank you also for reminding us that Europe is actually has some powerhouses in terms of science and innovation. And when you think about this, and I'll come quickly to what you just asked, but also to frame it, if you think about the entire ecosystem of science and knowledge generation, Europe has basically half of the world's top 100 life science universities. We have some of the best skilled talents in academia. If you look at the Nobel Prize winners, it's not all America. In my country, there's the Max Planck Society that has, I think, won over 20 Nobel awards over the years in natural sciences. So Europe is still a tremendously strong science hub for the world. So my understanding is when the European Commission wants to legislate pharma, that is also recognition that this is an important sector, because they typically turn their eye more on the things that matter to them. So that's a good thing. What we see is there is an intent to improve competitiveness. There is an intent to improve access to all citizens across the 27 member states. But unfortunately, good intentions are not necessarily what produce good results. And what we've seen in this legislation is that while science is strong, translation of science into application in Europe is rather an issue. And we believe that despite the good intentions, this legislation may actually even open and widen the gap in terms of what it means for innovation based out of Europe, but ultimately also the intention to give better access to citizens with the way this is proposed is not necessarily meeting its goals.
Are you able to give us any specific examples, perhaps, of medicine candidates you've got in the pipeline there at Bayer that might be impacted by these proposals as they stand?
Yeah, so one of the things, and I can be very concrete here, Helen, one of the things that we're talking about is to give access in all 27 member states to innovations. And the allegation is that industry is cherry picking on the most lucrative markets. And what I can say is that the current kind of idea to force us to have a product introduced into markets within the 27 member states within 2 years is a great goal. But unfortunately, the decision of that is not necessarily happening at the European level. It's a national decision for the most part. And very often we see that even though we as an industry in Europe are perfectly ready to commit to submit for reimbursement in all 27 member states for pricing and reimbursement, that doesn't mean that the patient will be able to benefit across the board. I can give you some very concrete examples from my own portfolio, because sometimes it's really unbelievable what is happening. We recently introduced a new medicine in heart failure across the world, and in a number of countries, we're seeing some, let's say, bureaucracy very often related issues that keep us back. In Croatia, for example, we needed up to 10 reimbursement decisions as a pre-requirement for the payer to assess even the application. You can imagine that when you need 10 decisions, bureaucracy at its best, we're in it for much longer than 2 years before a patient gets product in hand. The same product we had in other countries, like Belgium, for example, payer required data comparing the product's benefit to that of competitors, which were yet to launch in that country, leading to a denial of reimbursement for lack of us being able to supply this data. In other countries, they were asking us to have clinical data on guidelines, which were created after we had actually submitted for approval. So this is this post hoc and after the fact evidence generation ask that we're getting from local payer authorities, completely independent of European approval by the EMA. So those are very concrete examples where all of a sudden good intentions on our side get caught in the bureaucracy of pricing and reimbursement decisions at the country level and delay access to citizens. Now, if you then turn this and say, oh, it's your fault that the product's not on the market, then that definitely leads to absolutely wrong incentives and an undue potential punishment for our industry, and creates another incentive against Europe. So something that Europe is already battling with even becomes worse.
And we know we're talking here about trying to launch a product across all of the EU countries within the 2-year period to claw back that 2 years of data exclusivity. Do you know of any medicines that Bayer has launched that's ever been possible?
Within the 2 years? That's a good question. I doubt it, quite frankly, that this was ever possible. I have not now specifically going back in history looked at all the things, because these legislations per country are fluid. They have a tendency to have become more bureaucratic with time. So I could imagine that way back when, probably when it was less than 27 countries, we were able to do this within 2 years. But Helen, believe me, and I think this holds true for at least all those companies that have commercial presence in the 27 markets, they have a high interest in bringing these medicines to patients, just from an economic perspective to do so. And we as industry, because this is one of those things, oh, you only launch in the high-priced markets, we have actually introduced proposals so that even in those markets where government entities or other reimbursement bodies would significantly take the price down as a reimbursement proposal, we have opened the door to having discussions on sort of equity-based tiered pricing, even across the European Union, but so far to no avail. And by the way, it also didn't make it into this package, because you can imagine if a certain country, sometimes even some of the richer countries in Europe, proposes a very low reimbursement price compared to the average that we have in Europe, with a free circulation of goods, very quickly the price is going to come closer to the lowest common denominator. So we need to have also some pricing planability across Europe.
What would it take? Because I know that Bayer's been supportive of this tiered pricing model along with other drug companies. But what would it take for the industry and countries to sign up to this kind of model across the bloc? Could it be organized through the member states, or would it be something that would be centrally overseen, for example?
So ultimately, pricing is in the authority of the member states. But we need to come to an understanding, and this includes member states, and I think also potentially the Commission, of how to orchestrate this. I was telling you that the free circulation of goods across Europe potentially makes this really difficult. So is there a possibility to create an exemption for certain countries that they cannot just export all of their product to other parties, other parts of Europe? We're seeing this, that if small countries have a high price differential against the rest of Europe, very often patients in that country don't get access to product because the trade is just shipping everything that is being sold into that country into other countries with higher prices. This is something where the regulator needs to support us. But before we get there, Helen, we need to have a dialogue on this. So we have been unilaterally bringing this up so far with relatively little echo from policymakers. Instead, they want to legislate this 2-year time frame and say, well, you get 2 more years of exclusivity instead, but in reality, it's potentially 2 years less. And this is one of the things that ultimately I think has to really be critically viewed in this legislation. I was talking to you about the gap that we have compared to the US or also compared to China in terms of keeping innovation in Europe and making them accessible to patients. If we create regulation that does the opposite of incentivizing private sector to invest and to stay, then the result is going to be that we're going to have less investment and less staying power of the private sector. We already see today that a big portion of new medicines that are approved by the FDA don't even make it to Europe. Very often because companies, especially in the biotech area, don't even do clinical trials in Europe anymore. This is really alarming because it will end in being a non-equitable access to quality of innovative medicine in the future if this trend continues.
But the Commission says that there's some significant changes to the regulatory environment in Europe in its proposals that would make the region more attractive to industry, like greater digitization, really speeding up the assessments, doing away with multiple medicines committees, more flexible regulatory approaches with this idea of using the sandbox to experiment a bit more. What's Bayer's assessment of what those changes would make to the sector and the attractiveness of the region?
Yeah, thank you, Helen, for bringing this up, because we of course need to show a much more balanced picture than just the one aspect that the two of us have been speaking about up to now. And yes, there are good things also in this legislation that are going to help to reduce bureaucracy and hopefully speed up certain processes. But this is just catching up. So this is not that Europe all of a sudden is that safe haven for great innovation compared to America. So I think we're seeing some catching up here, and I applaud the effort to do so. Let's not forget, a lot of the boundaries still remain also in the member states. So I can talk to you about the Germany case, where the government is also now making an effort to increase competitiveness in our sector, because they're realizing how important to the German economy, and I would expand how important to the European economy, pharmaceutical industry is. This is a net exporter of goods from the European Union. So we, as citizens of Europe, have an interest in having a strong pharmaceutical industry, because it is a net positive industry in terms of creating wealth for our citizens.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Stefan, thank you so much. I think that's all we've got time for this morning. To sum up, I think we've heard some really interesting, more granular points from a pharmaceutical company about the concerns around the pharmaceutical legislation that's been proposed by the Commission, particularly around some of the reimbursement decisions that happen nationally and what impact they have on the ability to launch in 27 member states, for example, to claw back those 2 years of data exclusivity, and the need to have a planned pricing model to really have predictability to be able to launch in that way, and concerns around potentially parallel trade that might be a hurdle to that kind of model. Some positive notes at the end there with regards to the cutting bureaucracy for the regulatory environment in Europe as well. Stefan, thank you for your time. Next up, we have a networking break before the next session. Look out for the partner stands in the foyer and bonus points for those of you who find Intuitive's surgical robot. Please be back in time for the next session. It's another panel discussion on the pharma strategy, but this time on how best to improve access to medicines, which starts at 11:25. Thank you.